Why, hello there! A Knife's Tale here. I thank you for tuning in today, and I most importantly hope that this video finds you well. What are we doing? We're doing a review of this budget knife. This is the Miguron Karok, which is sort of the first knife to come out of their sort of reinvented budget lines that they are doing with super high HRC. Well, not super high HRC, but pretty good HRC on the blade steels and some pretty crazy materials and stuff for the price point. These are really well priced, which I will talk about later. However, this is a full review. Timestamps will be down below if you care to skip over something, because we're going to go into specs first. Consider liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. And let's get right into specs. Without further ado, right? You have about 3 3/8 blade length, so, 3.33, something like that. Wait, no, that's not quite right, is it? 3/8 would be 3.35-ish, I guess. Almost 3.4 inches of blade. 7 5/8, so 7.6, 6, 7. Basically, it's kind of awkward. Very close, maybe just a hair under 4 1/4 on the handle. The numbers are a little bit messy there, but let's do our comparisons to see if we can convey them a little bit better visually, right? Than just spouting out some kind of awkward inch numbers. Small Elementum, full-size Conspirator knife comparison. Center that out, and as you can see, this knife falls pretty well in between the two. I will say that the blade would technically be a little bit more on the edge, comparable to the Conspirator than it is the Elementum, actually. But the handle is so thin and small that it sort of makes it feel small. But at the same time, the blade's big and you got a lot of room. It just doesn't feel small. It's definitely a medium-sized knife. It's not full, but it's definitely reasonably nimble and sort of medium-sized. Compared to 2 AA batteries for the grip length comparison, I'm going to put the AA batteries here at this angle change. You can wrap around a little bit for a kind of comfortable 3.5, 4 finger grip on the edge. However, your primary grip's in here, in my opinion, so you've got about 1 3/4 AA battery plus the choke up for a little bit over 2 AA batteries. Hardware check, because it is right over here. You have T8 on the pivot, T8 on the scale screws, T6 on the pocket clip, T6 on the thumb stud, and there are 2 screws that are actually holding the knife together underneath here with the standoffs. I think they're T6, they may be T8, but they're probably T6. Either way, to really fully interface with the knife, you need both T6 and T8 anyway, so it's better to have it, right? Not necessarily ideal. I would love to see just T8s all around, but with as many things that they've done well on this knife, I'm not going to complain too hard, especially for the price point. 3.1, hopefully that's coming across. I never know if this stupid screen works. 3.15 ounces. So, you have less than an ounce for each inch of blade, which is quite nice. The ratios are good, and they can actually get better as there are carbon fiber options. There are also titanium options that are probably likely a little bit heavier, but I mean, the scales of this thing are pretty minimal, and they've got a lot of weight reduction inside. You can sort of see it in there. Yeah, it's not a heavy knife. Ratios, people will be pretty happy, and as I said, you can even get it a little bit lighter. Where is the final... not hiding, it was just me being stupid. The calipers for the thickness. 445 thousandths thickness, so under half an inch. With the clip, it is 635-ish, which is actually pretty good. Most of the time, once you get a clip, it's like 630, and not 630, 680 thousandths, potentially over to 700. So pretty thin, pretty reasonable. Blade stock also pretty thin, just over 100 thousandths. And behind the edge, this might be a little bit tricky to get good because they have a very slick stonewash here, which is possibly going to make this a little bit of a pain in the butt. The edge is slick and the stonewash is slick, and hopefully I can get you pretty good. Yeah, that's about right. 15-ish thousandths. Pretty nice and thin. Not too old, like not like insane like 10 thousandths, but absolutely thin, slicey, good geometry, good tall flat grind. No problem there. That brings us to the end of our specs. So let's just talk about this thing. You've got D2 blade steel on this. Not for everyone. It is not as corrosion resistant as, you know, an actual... It's a tool steel. It's not really corrosion resistant or anything like that. However, in my experience, keep it clean. Maybe some frog lube or something, oil it occasionally. Mostly just keep it clean, keep it nice. I've not had any problem with rusting, but it can definitely happen, especially if you're in more of a coastal environment, so this may not be your thing. However, as I said, this is the first in their line of this sort of reinvented high hardness stuff. The second, the Salura, and there's one more now that came out, are in this 19C27 steel. I don't know, I have no experience with it, but it should be stainless, so whatever. You do have some options. The biggest selling point here is that the blade steel for the D2 and the 19C is hardened up to 62 to 63 HRC, which is considerably higher than you see most of these, especially at budget territories. And from what I've seen, a number of them have been tested, and they're pretty consistent about it. They're pretty good. So, decently high hardness, you should get some pretty solid edge retention out of this thing. Maybe lose a little bit of the toughness compared to lower hardening, but at the same time, do you really need toughness in a pocket knife? As long as the edge doesn't roll on you, I don't need it to be able to withstand a beating, right? I'm not going to be beating on a small pocket knife blade. Maybe a big pocket knife blade, but not something like this. It's too thin. It's certainly not meant for that. It is reasonably slicey with that tall flat grind, as I've said. Got that nice sort of reflective stonewash going on. Nice and slick. There is jimping on the spine. Goes up about halfway to the point of this, what do we even call that? Just the hump. It's got really good jimping on it, actually. This jimping is really, really, really grippy. Very solid there. A little swedge, sort of a modified cleaver, sheep's foot blade shape. Just a good functional shape, while at the same time being a little bit interesting with that little rise in it and everything. I like it. Sharpening choil and plunge grind. Plunge grind is absolutely amazing, being at the apex of the sharpening choil, and the sharpening choil is, of course, a big finger choil, so you have tons of room and life on this. And my personal favorite aspect of this is they put a little nub, even though it's not the kind of nub that really catches your finger. Actually, you can kind of catch your finger on the nub on the tang. As you can see, it's right there. That also acts as the stop pin in the open and closed position. It does not contact the button. So that's really, really nice. It is on bearings. As you can see, the action is actually quite good. And even better if you're going to use the button. Thumb stud actuation only, but they sit far enough away from the scales. They're small, they're comfortable, they're grippy enough. They work really well for whatever you're going to do. Moving on to the actual handle. Oh, I almost missed my favorite thing. Do you see anything on that blade? I don't, and that looks clean and nice and refined. I like it. I prefer seeing nothing or minimal, like maybe just the steel on the blade. This one has absolutely nothing and is completely sterile. The logo is right here on the pivot, and I don't mind it there because that's a nice enough looking logo. Love seeing that. Gotta shout it out whenever I do. Absolutely attracts me to knives more than, you know... Sorry, I love my sheepdog, but that doesn't really need all that. The sheepdog is very iconic now. I think you can do away with the branding. But whatever. It is a liner lock, though obviously it is a button operated liner lock. It is not a top liner lock, technically, where the liner lock sits on top of the back end of the tang. It is standard sort of liner lock function where it abuts up to each other and holds in place. Now, theoretically, the one that sits on top of the tang, like, say, this Kaiser Foca here, as you can see, the tang has the notch here, so when it interfaces with the button, the lock actually sits on top of that spot instead of behind it. This should be stronger. However, I have noticed, and I think I mentioned this before, that this configuration, while it should technically be stronger, does have a tendency to have a lot more button stick. I've had it pretty consistently on most of them, even the Vosteeds that I have the button stick that have that configuration, compared to the ones that go behind the in sort of traditional liner lock fashion. It's a trade-off. You might get a little bit of button stick. It seems pretty consistent, but you should be technically a stronger lockup. However, if you're not going to use this thing too hard, I mean, liner locks have worked for years. Is any of that relevant? Maybe, maybe not. But it is nice to know that, like, I don't know, there's a difference or something just to keep in mind. The lock itself is accessible from both the liner and the button, so you can definitely disengage this normally. It's not quite from the side because of just the softness and the angles and just how much sticks out. However, it's very, very accessible, and it's absolutely not a problem to get to. So good liner lock access, simple button lock access. If you just never want to deal with that, you're perfectly free to do so. Now, the scales. The scales are really, really interesting here. Now, this splatter pattern, I imagine, is not for everyone. They've got a few options. There's like a splatter green and red and stuff like that, and I think a color fade, maybe? I know there is some on some of the other ones. Not necessarily for everyone. I can understand that. I like the look of this. I didn't like this necessarily the splattered like green, but then again, I didn't buy that one, right? I like this. I could understand if you don't. If you don't, you are kind of, if you still want this knife, you're kind of forced into going to the carbon fiber or the titanium options. They don't have that sort of issue there, or color, or whatever you want to call it. So, you have some choices. You might have to spend a little bit more money if you want it more plain, but that's fine too. I will say that I'm very impressed with the amount of details. As you can see, there's like this folio that runs along and part of the handle here, and if you really look close, there's some like texture down here. I mean, you can see those lines. Yeah. You don't really feel much texture, but you can definitely see it. There's also some, I don't know, cut-ins or whatever you want to call them. There's a lot of detail, and it's really well executed. Everything's soft. There's multiple stages of chamfers to, even though it's flat, make it very comfortable in the hand. This just works and really does sort of give you that extra little bit of detail that you're not expecting to see on a knife of this price point, which, again, we'll talk about that in just a moment, but it's a really good price point. The handle is pretty neutral and just pretty good. It's just good and it's comfortable. The pocket clip is actually what I want to say is probably the first and biggest weakness of this knife. As you can see, first of all, the pocket clip is more of like a greenish gold. I don't know why they did that. The standoffs and the button are sort of like in between this gold and the pocket clip color, which is a little bit odd. But the pocket clip is really kind of standing out as oddly colored. I would have kind of wished for more of a rich sort of golden yellow, but okay. That's not the biggest thing with the pocket clip. The biggest thing with the pocket clip is it's just kind of a weird pocket clip. First of all, on this one, as you can see, the holes don't exactly line up perfectly unless you angle it. So getting in there, well, I can definitely do it. It's just kind of on a weird angle. The steel on this pocket clip is also, it's got good flex. It's got decent retention, but it's got that sort of like building retention where it's like starts off really easy and then it builds up a little bit instead of just having some decent retention throughout. It's that kind of feel, I don't know how to describe it. If you've ever experienced it, it's the kind of clip where if you were to get this caught on something, you could absolutely just bend this thing out, probably pretty easily. It doesn't feel like the highest quality clip. which is, yeah, okay, it's on a cheap budget knife, but with all they've done for the rest of the knife, it just feels like they kind of was an afterthought. Flat, a little bit of flat on the end there, decent depth, flat screws, inlet set. It is reversible, which is nice because the button gives sort of an ambidextrous function to the liner lock. However, the clip is just kind of bleh. It's surprisingly comfortable. Even on this thin handle, you can feel it, but it's surprisingly comfortable. But the quality of the material and the execution of it is just kind of strange. It also pinch points right on top of this sort of, louver, whatever you call those things. Which is, it's not bad because it's not sharp at all, but just some strange choices in the pocket clip. I don't know what happened there. Hopefully, maybe they'll switch that up or offer some alternatives or something like that. I certainly would like to see that come. It is deep carry, like ultra deep carry, fits in the pocket, no problem. It has a little bit of presence due to the height of it, but I'd say it's probably not even as high as your standard Spyderco. I don't have your standard Spyderco here. In fact, the closest one I have is this. Actually, it's just as high as the what is this, the Emphasis or whatever that got discontinued. That, holy crap, really needs to be cleaned. I need to sharpen and clean that, and holy crap, yeah. That I may have been doing some stupid shit with. Pardon my language. But everything is great except for the pocket clip. Now, there are two things left to talk about. Price, and that's the main reason why it's great. It's $37. This with this HRC, with this level of fit and finish on 90% of the knife for $37. Absolutely very solid. Very, very, very recommendable. There are titanium options and carbon fiber options. I think the titanium comes in at $60, which, for an upgrade to titanium scales, still keeping in the budget territory, pretty darn great. And the carbon fiber comes in at like $63 for some reason. Again, not something to complain about. Wow, yeah, these are very recommendable knives. And very recommendable, what you're getting is pretty darn solid. The final thing I want to talk about, and this is important, I have heard some talk of some of the QC on these things not being amazing. I will say the QC on this pocket clip is not amazing, but I've heard some slippage, some finishing hiccups and everything like that maybe shouldn't have gotten through. I think that is primarily on the first run of these. I know Miguron specifically made an address and addressed that there was some people experiencing a little bit of slip like this one. If I put a little bit of extra muscle into it, I can feel just a little bit of up and down movement. Just like this, no, it feels solid. But if I push into it a little bit, I can feel a little bit of up and down movement on the lock. That might just because the lock is so soft. Or I should say the lock material is so rounded and softened. That should sort of work its way out as the lock moves over a little bit more and as it breaks in a little bit more. I've carried this and used it a bit, but I haven't probably used enough for it to fully break in, I would say. It came pretty well set, but, mine is centered-ish, normally. Yeah, centered, that's just the light. Centered, without any play in any other way other than just a tiny hint up and down. It feels pretty solid, but I know I have heard a few things about people mentioning some QC questionable things on these things. Not great look, I admit, but again, Miguron has addressed it, good for them on their part, and said that a lot of these things have been looked into and touched up on second and runs. They may even be on the third run at this point, but they did say they looked into it and made a few tweaks. So hopefully the QC consistency will go up from here, and honestly, as it is, this one is pretty darn recommendable. Even with that little bit tiny bit of up and down, this is a very recommendable knife. The line that Miguron's been releasing are pretty much all pretty recommendable as far as I can tell. again, hopefully their QC continues to be a little more consistent as they get more accustomed or familiarized with this new patterns, right? It can happen. But overall, yeah, this is a good knife. It's a good knife. The Karok here is an absolutely solid knife, and I definitely recommend it. I will link it down below if you care to check it out. And I think that pretty much does it for my review. So, thank you very, very much for watching. I believe I already said, comment, like, subscribe. What are your thoughts? Have you ever had any issues with, if you have one, just let me know. I'd like more information, more feedback, more, you know, the more information I get from other people, as I only have experience with this particular one, the better and more certain I can be in my commentary about, is it good, is it worth its price, or something like that. And that's the end goal, right? I'm trying to help people maybe make a good purchase, or see something they like, and tell them whether it's maybe worth the money. More information is usually good for that. So, that's it for me. Thank you very, very much for watching. Continue to, or start having a great day. Either way, let's make the rest of it great. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. I'm sure some videos are popping up on the screen now where you can click on to check out some other stuff on the channel. That's up to you. Either way, hopefully I see you again. Bye for now.